Good afternoon from the 104.5 The Zone studios. I'm Ross Johnston. The Titans are in preseason action tonight against the Atlanta Falcons, and we've got you covered, starting with the League Company countdown to kickoff during 3HL. Titans Radio will take over after that with Lucas Panzica, Rhett Bryan, and Coach Matt getting you ready for kickoff at 6 p.m. Coach Brian Callahan talked about how much you can expect to see Cam Ward and the Titans starters earlier in the week.
Everybody's going to play, probably similar to last week. My same guys probably out. Simmons and Zeiler will probably sit, but other than that, most guys should be good to go. I may revisit that after today and see where we're at and all that, but yeah, plan on those guys playing pretty similar to last week.
There is a second NFL preseason game tonight as the Chiefs take on the Seattle Seahawks. Seahawks coach Mike McDonald says most of their starters will play. The expectation is for Mahomes and co. with the Chiefs to do the same. Cleveland Browns running back Quinshon Judkins won't face a formal misdemeanor battery charge over an alleged domestic incident in South Florida last month. Judkins, the number 36 pick, is the lone unsigned member of this year's draft class as his legal situation remained in flux. For all your foundation repair and waterproofing needs, visit USSTN.com. Breaking news at once on your home for the Titans and Vols. This is 104.5 The Zone.
Cover 2 with Blaine Bishop and Zach Lyons here on 104.5 The Zone, powered by All Four Seasons Garage Doors. 615-737-1045 is the number. Got a lot to get to today. I've been off for the last 2 days. I hope everybody was nice to Lucas. And if you weren't, there's nothing I can do about it. I got Stoney Keeley in for Across From Me. You can hear him also on Football Under the F-Words, which we did not have an episode this week, just in case you were looking for it. And also we have Titans Talk back later this afternoon, right after the game.
Can't wait.
All right. We got all kinds of stuff that we want to talk about today. We got
Loaded
Jordan
docket.
DeJaney. We'll talk a little bit go around the NFL with him because a lot happened with the NFL. But I have to get something off my chest.
Uh-oh.
I'm a snack connoisseur, I guess you could say.
Yeah.
For those that may have not had this, I do recommend at the end cap of the Publix aisles, look for their cherry lime licorice bites by Publix. They are phenomenal, very good if you're a licorice guy. But Dawn is eating healthier, and she has left 2 bags of snacks back there, which are the worst snacks I've ever put in my mouth. No flavor.
No.
And that's the thing with eating healthy. There's a way to eat healthy, but also have good snacks. And I just want to give an F- to Dawn for her snacks, and how dare she just leave those in here for unsuspecting people to try.
I mean, I see a tube of Pringles over there. I don't know what you're talking about, Zach. I don't know. It looks pretty good to me.
Well, the Pringles is good, but there's that's not a healthy snack.
Oh, okay.
So there's like these pea snacks.
Excuse me?
I don't know how to describe them. These are pea snacks back there. And then there's this rosemary olive oil, like wafer thin or something.
Ooh, that sounds delightful.
It would if it tasted anything like rosemary and olive oil. Nothing is in there.
Maybe you got to provide the rosemary and the olive oil. Maybe it's not prepackaged, you know. It's all about the experience. You have to get in there and do it yourself, and then you learn a little bit about yourself along the way.
I mean, the Pringles are great. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah, that's my bad. I got distracted.
Yeah.
I saw the tube over there, and I saw nothing else.
Well, that says a lot about you that you assume that I'm talking healthy snacks and you think I'm talking about Pringles.
Well, I mean, you know my diet. I was telling you, I slammed a gas station biscuit on the way into the station.
I'm a gas station food connoisseur.
Well, it was one of those situations where it said good till 11:51 a.m. and I picked it up at 11:42 a.m. and was like, buddy, I beat the buzzer. We're good here. And now my tummy's rumbling. I'm afraid our listeners might hear my tummy rumbling on the air.
All right. Our friend Easton wrote a fantastic article that decided to drop at like 9:31 p.m. last night.
Yeah.
Or 8:31 Central Standard Time, I guess, according to this, which is just an odd time, but I'm sure A to Z has some kind of like weird analytics that says nobody's doing anything at 8:31 but reading their site. And it says Titans think they have it. Fans think they don't. Why the team can't yet prove what we're desperate to see in the Cam Ward era. Doesn't really tell you what it's about. Which is good. You like a good tease. You're like, what does that mean?
It's well crafted.
What is he talking about? And basically, it devolves into what are the Tennessee Titans?
Yeah.
Because there's been a lot of talk this week, slow starts. We've been talking, it feels like, on air for focus, camaraderie, energy, juice.
Yeah.
Identity, all these things about the Tennessee Titans that we as a media or fans have not had really the answers to. So he asked a couple of people throughout the week how the Titans define culture. So here we go. Specific conditions that encourage growth. Okay, so, essentially, are our players in the right position to succeed?
Yeah.
Have we fostered a community in the locker room is kind of how I took that. Authentic commitment to our mission, our team, our teammates over the commitment to ourself. So selflessness.
Put your teammates before yourself.
There you go. Culture is how we work together for a common goal and how we treat each other. They use Steve Kerr, head coach, Golden State Warriors, as an example here. Culture is way more important than scheme. Coaching is 20 to 30% strategy. Everything else is about communication and what your players feel every day when they come into the building. And lastly, what culture means to me is what the players feel when they enter the building every day. What do they experience? What's the vibe in the building? What that is, that's the culture.
Okay.
So you hear all that.
Sounds great.
Sounds great.
Yep.
But it's about the actions for me.
It's about the actions. And to me, I don't think you truly, like, this sounds nice. This is a vision. This is an ideal. This is something fantastic to work towards. But you're not going to know if you have that until you hit a wall or somebody pushes back on you. Like, I think you learn what your culture truly is during adversity. When you've had the hard times, that's when you really learn, okay, this stuff that we've been saying, it's all well and good. Easton did a fantastic job reporting on that, writing that article, putting that out there, but we haven't played a down of regular season football yet. So to me, it's more of an ideal than a culture, and we won't see, it won't be tested, and we won't find out for sure until this team faces a little adversity and they start stockpiling losses, and we'll see how well this ideal holds up then. That's where I'm at.
Yeah, because culture is only as good in your darkest moments, right?
Yes, yes.
And I think last year through the losing that we've saw this from this team for a while, even during the Vrabel era, is that they didn't handle losing very well. Towards the end of that era, into the Brian Callahan era, and listen, a lot of those players got shifted out last season, and even more got shifted out this season.
Let me ask you, did you feel like the losing just compounded that week after week? It just felt like the psyche of this team was like, we can't get out of our own way. We can't stop the bleeding, so to speak. And to me, that sort of mindset can permeate throughout the locker room and sort of infect the team in a way. And that's what the last couple of seasons have felt like to me anyway.
Yeah, I agree. I look at it this way. The best way to build a winning culture is to win.
Yeah.
Because it's hard to build a winning culture or a foundation when you're being pulled into so many directions, whether that's, the conflicting ideas between GM and head coach, or whether it's not having players fully bought in, or not having players lifting up young players. Because, look at it this way. I heard Ramon and Will talking about this morning, and I threw in a few suggestions as well. But, the prime example of how this culture has changed to me is the difference in Ridley from last year to this year.
For sure. Absolutely.
And you see, not to say that Ridley, wasn't a good leader or anything last year, but this year you see him spend extra time with Cam Ward all the time. At practice, he is right there next to them every day, teaching him, talking through routes, and then he's also passing that knowledge along to the young wide receivers in the locker room.
Yeah.
You look over at Cody Barton, Cedric Gray, Will Bowling was talking about, but Cedric Gray said that mean like he's learned. Cody Barton is like a second linebackers coach. Like those examples, and I'm sure there's other examples throughout the locker room, but those examples kind of show you that this is a different team than last year. And then this off-season program that Brian Callahan installed about building togetherness, connectedness, you see it in their outings. You see it on the field. Does that translate to wins? We don't know. But maybe in the losses, you see a different team handle those losses better than what they did last year and what they did under the end of Vrabel.
I think that's the key to it. And Joe brought it up in the chat as well. The loser mentality is hard to beat when you're losing. So the easiest way...
If you can't win games, you can't win against losing, right?
Yeah. So I think that's the key to this whole thing is like to just, it's going to be tested in the tough moments, and you have players in place that you're seeing positive returns on so far. It just has to click. It has to translate when the games mean something.
And this is all really good stuff, though. And the reason why I do put a little bit of emphasis in the words is because it sounds like everybody's on the same page.
Yeah.
I think if you would have asked people last year, the last year of Vrabel, and even the year prior, I think you would have got a bunch of different answers. Now, we still don't have an identity for this team.
Yeah.
And that's going to develop. I think once you start seeing and we heard Brinker and Borgonzi say this at their joint press conference before training camp started, was that, hey, this team doesn't have a lot of stars, but we're hoping that a lot of our young players emerge as stars.
Yeah.
And once these stars emerge, that will change the identity. Because I think everybody wants I guess you would say under Vrabel, it was a run-first defensive team. They weren't a very good defense for the majority that he was here, but that's what he wanted to be. You knew what Vrabel wanted to be.
Yeah.
You knew that Malarkey wanted to be a run-first exotic smash-mouth team, right? You knew Wisenhunt wanted to be a brat and just try to be something his team wasn't ready to be, which is a pass-heavy team.
Regardless of the personnel.
Yeah, regardless of the personnel. We don't know. We have an inkling of what this team wants to be and wants to be explosive, but we haven't seen that team do it.
Yeah.
The actions on the field will establish the identity. Now, they may have tried to establish an identity behind the scenes, but we don't know what that is actually going to translate to on the field, because at the end of the day, and we've heard so many people talk about it, specifically the players, this is a player-driven culture. And when this is a player-driven culture, they're going to be the ones that establish the identity.
Yeah, well said.
There you go. That's it. And you don't have anything else to add. This is radio. You need to talk.
I don't have anything to add to that, particularly.
Okay, so when we come back, we're going to put a pin in the culture conversation, because the culture conversation will kind of like trickle through the rest of the stuff that we're going to talk about. But when we come back, we'll have Jordan DeJaney of CBS Sports. We're going to go around the NFL with him. This is Cover 2 with Blaine Bishop and Zach Lyons here on 104.5 The Zone. Cover 2 with Blaine Bishop and Zach Lyons here on 105 The Zone, powered by All Four Seasons Garage Door. 615-737-1045 is the number. Got Stoney Keeley filling in for Blaine while he is out on vacation. We'll also have Titans Talk back later tonight after the show. But until then, we got to go around the NFL because it is Friday and we got Jordan DeJaney joining us. And Jordan, why can't Cam Little's 70-yard field goal actually count for the record books? Shouldn't we make an exception?
What's going on, my friends? Thanks for having me on the show. Yeah, I think that was my main takeaway from preseason week 1 was that 70-yard field goal made by Cam Little, who has put the rest of the NFL on notice as the kicker to really pay attention to. But yeah, since it took place in the preseason, Justin Tucker's 66-yard field goal is still going to stand as the longest made field goal in NFL history. But with that being said, Cam Little was asked to provide his game-worn jersey and his right cleat to send to the Pro Football Hall of Fame up in Canton, Ohio, football heaven, so it could be displayed there. So that was an incredible kick. I'm looking forward to Joey Sly knocking him off with a 71-yard made field goal against the Falcons indoors this evening, though.
I like it. The Ravens and Commanders cancel future joint practices over logistical challenges. They're only 45 minutes apart. What's going on with this?
Yeah, I thought this was kind of a ridiculous story because we've got guys like Blaine Bishop back in the day who were playing 3-a-day practices, full tilt, full physicality. But now we're canceling joint practices these days just because two teams, which again are very close to each other, are playing their second preseason games on different days. So I think that the Baltimore Ravens specifically were worried about resting their players and making sure that they were ready for the final preseason game and that they were fully healthy for week 1 of the regular season. But this might be a trend we see continuing where if teams are playing on different days in the exhibition season that they might be canceling joint practices. So it sounds like something Dan Quinn for the Commanders was not exactly happy with, but he understood.
Okay, so we're going to talk about Cam Ward's proclamation that this could be a top 5 wide receiver unit and top 10 offense in the NFL later on in the show. But what's more ridiculous? C.J. Stroud saying that Bryce Young is one of the best quarterbacks he's ever seen in his life? Or the offensive coordinator for the Bengals, Dan Pitcher, labeling Chase Brown as a top 10 running back?
Oh, I love this question. It's probably got to be C.J. Stroud's proclamation. I mean, listen, I think that Bryce Young, like if you're a casual NFL fan, you probably didn't notice that Bryce Young had an incredible turnaround in his last few games with the Panthers in 2024. And there's a lot of optimism around Carolina heading into this season, especially with them drafting Ted McMillan, who's going to make an instant impact on that offense. Maybe Bryce Young has finally turned the corner after struggling mightily early on in his career. And he's never done anything like C.J. Stroud has in terms of getting to the playoffs and winning games and getting and all those awards and things of that nature. But maybe Bryce Young is ready for a turnaround. When it comes to Chase Brown, I was actually kind of surprised to see that our fantasy experts at CBS Sports do have Chase Brown as somewhat of a top 10 NFL running back. I don't think that Chase Brown is a top 10 back at face value when it comes to power ranking just the best rushers in today's NFL. But if you're a fantasy mind, Chase Brown, I think, ranked number 5 among running backs in receptions last year. So maybe he's someone who's worth a pick when it comes to your fantasy football drafts this month.
We're going around the NFL with Jordan DeJaney of CBS Sports.
Jordan, thank you for joining us this afternoon, and thank you for taking it easy on the Titans fan base this week with no more trips down memory lane. I'm going to take us there, though, because I'm going to bring up Mike Vrabel. And we've seen him end up on the bottom of a pile at least twice this week, going viral on Twitter. We've seen here in Nashville, the bravado works wonders in the good times. It can grow tiring in the bad times when the team's losing quite a bit. Do you have a sense of where this Patriots organization is at right now with that? What's your read on how they're responding to his leadership style so far?
I think they're in a great spot. You know, I think Mike Vrabel is one of the favorites to win Coach of the Year for good reason. Not to make Titans fans upset, but I think that he's done a tremendous job of just implementing the culture that he wants in New England, and I feel like he's been really aggressive in doing that. And I feel like you've almost seen that in his correspondence with reporters at press conferences as well. But one of the things he's done is get mixed up in these training camp joint practice fights. And how many of head coaches around the NFL do you really see doing that? And I understand it was kind of funny when he did it against Washington, emerged from the pile with a bloodied right cheek or whatever. But then we had actually video of Mike Vrabel breaking up a training camp fight this week on his 50th birthday, by the way. And he was on his knees in the middle of the pile trying to play the role of peacemaker. And his players, such as Drake May, their star quarterback, have talked about how they like seeing that energy from Mike Vrabel because he's basically practicing what he preaches, what he wants from his players, from his team in terms of intensity.
All right, so for our listeners, I'm the one that brought up Mike Vrabel. Give Jordan the week off after his piece last week. Come after me. Stay out of his mentions. What's the latest on Matthew Stafford's injury, and what is the contingency plan for the Rams if he's not available?
And real quick, I'd like to add on to this. What's up with that Airstream that he's apparently getting holistic reverberations pumped through his body?
Yeah. I reached out to the Rams about their experimental medications because my dad with his back needs that as well. But when it comes to Matthew Stafford, this initially was a storyline that I didn't show much interest in. They labeled it as kind of a maintenance issue. But as it continues to linger, it becomes bigger, in my opinion. We're sitting here on August 15th. That's less than a month from the regular season opener, and Matthew Stafford has not been at practice doing 11-on-11s with his teammates. So what happened was last Saturday at the Rams facility, he threw something like 68 passes, had an individual workout, and they were going to try to work him into individual workouts this week. But he was a no-show. He did not follow that plan. And according to Sean McVay, he apparently had some soreness with his back after that individual workout on Saturday. So what the Rams are doing is they're going to repeat that schedule this week. So tomorrow morning, Matthew Stafford is again going to throw at the team facilities. Hopefully he doesn't have the same kind of pain or agitation with his back where he can return to practice the next week and start actually participating in some of these individual drills.
We're going around the NFL with Jordan DeJaney.
Jordan, I'm looking at Pete Prisco's top 100 NFL players list right now. And the Tennessee Titans actually landed a player on there. Jeffrey Simmons went up from 95 in 2024, and now is up at 78 in 2025. But what was the biggest surprise to you on this list that Pete Prisco of CBS Sports put out?
Yeah, I'll say when Pete Prisco releases this list every single year, it's one of the most viral articles we have because some of his rankings definitely get pretty controversial. I would say probably the biggest surprise was having Travis Kelce, the star tight end, star boyfriend of Taylor Swift, listed at number 96 overall. The number 96 overall player in the NFL, arguably the best tight end in today's NFL as well. Kelce clearly has had a dip in production, and I feel like I didn't read the full interview with GQ, but he did make a mention about how kind of his play has not been up to standard. And I don't think it's just because of age. I think that he really is taking the upcoming 2025 season seriously because many people anticipate that it's going to be his final year in the league. I think he's in the final year of his contract. The Chiefs had a pretty good offseason, in my opinion. Their sights are always set on the Lombardi Trophy. So Kelce being ranked at number 96 overall among all active NFL players was a surprise to me. And I think he's out to really kind of remind people that he's still one of the best weapons in terms of his versatility in today's NFL.
I know it hasn't been made official, but was there anything funnier than Isaiah Bond getting charges dropped and then immediately announcing that he was going to be signing with the Cleveland Browns?
It sounds like an SNL skit, right? Like, how is that real? Like, I mean, so it comes out, as you mentioned, facing no criminal charges for sexual assault, and then he immediately posts that he's signing with the Browns. Of course it's the Browns. Why did it have to be the Browns? With that being said, I don't think that this transaction is official. I think he might have jumped the gun a little bit. And also, Mary Kay Cabot reported that the NFL is reviewing Bond's case. So there is a possibility that he could face discipline under the personal conduct policy, similar to what's going on with Jordan Addison and Rashee Rice, although those are different situations.
The Colts coach, Shane Steichen, is hoping to decide on the Indianapolis starting quarterback sooner rather than later. I've heard that it's been not great for Anthony Richardson. He obviously got injured in the first preseason game, but this week at joint practices has not looked exceptional, according to some people. And if the Colts beat writers are telling you he hasn't looked exceptional, then it must be really bad because they fluff everything up in Indianapolis when it comes to the Colts. So at some point, aren't we just delaying the inevitable? Doesn't it have to be Daniel Jones?
I don't know. I think that's a good question, but I wrote that article today because I found that quote pretty funny. Shane Steichen's hoping he finds his starting quarterback sooner rather than later, because what that tells me is that Anthony Richardson and Daniel Jones, they have not stood out, right? There's not a front runner for this competition. And part of that is Anthony Richardson's being perennially injured, right? He had the shoulder injury in minicamp. He had that dislocated pinky on the sack he should have seen coming versus Baltimore. And I guess Daniel Jones hasn't done enough behind the scenes to really take hold of that battle. That's something that I kind of anticipated happening. I thought that Daniel Jones would be the favorite. But I did an article earlier this week looking at some of the odds in Vegas with these quarterback competitions, and Daniel Jones is still plus money. And I think that's a good bet, not because he could win the job outright, which is very possible, but also Anthony Richardson, he could get hurt in the next preseason game. We've seen that before. And I will remind people that the Colts gave Daniel Jones something like $14 million this offseason. They didn't do that just to be nice to him. They think that he's someone who is capable of being that consistent presence under center that can elevate the Colts ceiling. So I think that this upcoming preseason game where Daniel Jones is going to get the start, this is going to be one of the most important preseason matches to watch this week, because whichever quarterback performs better, and again, Daniel Jones gets the first crack, my guess is that that quarterback is going to be the week one starter.
We're going around the NFL with Jordan DeJaney of CBS Sports.
So, Jordan, Shedeur Sanders dealing with an oblique injury. It sounds like Dylan Gabriel's going to be good to go this weekend. How tooth and nail is this Browns quarterback battle, and how do you see things shaken down so far?
Yeah, I wish I could say it's a close quarterback battle, but from what I've seen, I just wonder if Joe Flacco's kind of the leader in the clubhouse, the 40-year-old who's not playing any preseason football, if the Browns are just going to lean towards him. And I bring that up because, you know, he won Comeback Player of the Year a couple seasons ago with the Browns. Like, he's highly regarded in that building. I thought that his play took a dip with the Colts last season, but I think that the Browns are probably leaning towards him being the starting quarterback. I wish that this was more of an open competition, but we need all the quarterbacks to partake in the preseason if that's going to happen. And the Browns have just had everybody injured. So we had the Shedeur showcase against the Panthers last week, and hopefully this week it's the Gabriel game is what I'm tabbing it as. I hope that Dylan goes out there and isn't as impressive as Shedeur Sanders was, because even though it's a preseason game, I did not expect Shedeur to look as good as he did. Like, this was the most highly anticipated preseason game I can ever remember, and Shedeur lived up to the hype. He's used to these big moments, and I thought he played extremely well. Definitely had a really good touchdown pass. He was more athletic than advertised, escaping pressure, in my opinion, even though he was going up against some reserve defensive linemen. I think it would be really interesting if Dylan Gabriel went out there and performed well against the Philadelphia Eagles. But when it comes to the competition at large, I still wonder if it's just Flacco's to lose behind the scenes.
Is it more interesting if Gabriel looks good or more interesting if Gabriel looks bad? Because if he looks bad and he was a third-round pick versus the fifth-round pick in Shedeur after Shedeur looked as good, feels like maybe that's a little bit more interesting, at least for us in media.
Yeah, I definitely see what you're saying, but I think it would be way more interesting if he looked good. What if he goes out there and just throws 3 touchdown passes and all of a sudden all the hype transfers from Shedeur to Dylan Gabriel? I don't know if that's going to happen, but that would be extremely interesting to me. And it would be also interesting from the viewpoint of, if I'm correct in saying that Flacco is the leader in the clubhouse and maybe Kenny Pickett is the second string or maybe trade bait, more energy and more attention will be giving to these rookie quarterbacks, because Shedeur balled out in his preseason game. Dylan Gabriel balls out in his preseason game. That's a way more interesting hypothetical, in my opinion.
So I know we're supposed to be going around the NFL right now, but you wrote about it this week, so I have to ask you, Jordan, what's going on with John Mateer's little inside jokes, and have you had the opportunity to clear your Venmo transaction history this week?
See, you're asking the right question. When I saw this story break, the first thing I did was go to my Venmo and make all my transactions private, because I went and started looking at things I was sending and receiving in like 2020, and I was like, okay, yeah, it's probably best that people don't see this. But I thought it was a really funny story, because I didn't think for a second that John Mateer was gambling on college football, because if he was, he wouldn't just list that he was with the specific game, right? That had to be some kind of joke. I wouldn't label it as an inside joke. I thought it was just a funny joke as is. But, I mean, this is just energy and attention that Oklahoma does not need right now, because John Mateer has been one of the most talked about quarterbacks this offseason, right? Like the number one transfer portal quarterback, and now he's caught up kind of in this firestorm. So I don't think that any investigation is going to come from it. It was just a very stupid mistake. But again, if you're out there listening to me right now, go ahead to your Venmo profile and make everything private.
There we go. We're around the NFL with Jordan DeJaney.
With Quinshon Judkins, obviously, now we're going back to the Browns, surprisingly enough. I mean, they're just such a franchise built with they're like the lesser of Dallas Cowboys. They're like the diet Dallas Cowboys. They got all this weird stuff going on.
It's like a bizarro situation.
But with Quinshon Judkins, I mean, how quick are they going to be able to get him into the lineup and get him some reps in preseason action, or do they still have to wait for the NFL to decide what's going to happen?
Yeah, I think what happened this week opens the door for him finally getting under contract and kind of returning to practice. But again, we're kind of in middle of August, so I don't know how involved he's going to be in terms of the game plan for the regular season. But the bottom line is that he's not going to face a battery charge after the prosecutors reviewed everything, which, again, opens the door for him to finally sign his contract. I read the decision from the prosecutors or the judge, and they talked about how the incident wasn't captured on any kind of video surveillance. There were no independent witnesses. There were also questions about the injuries that the victim suffered and the delayed report of the incident. The woman was alone with the defendant on multiple occasions after whatever happened in the car. She was even throwing a birthday party within the 5 days before reporting the incident. So that was the big news, was that prosecutors are not going to charge Quinshon Judkins. What I can tell you is that it seems like the door's open for him to finally put pen to paper on that rookie deal. But I think it's a good question that I can't answer in terms of how involved he's going to be with the game plan.
Finally, what's the latest going on with Micah Parsons and Dallas Cowboys? We saw that Jerry Jones, I guess, revealed that he was battling cancer about 10 years ago, earlier in the week. But we still have no resolution with Micah Parsons. On the flip side, and there's been rumors. I don't know if you are aware of this count, but this count called Pretty Ricky is some kind of insider that has been predicting a lot of stuff over the last 2 years, and he's predicting that there is an offer from the Green Bay Packers to the Cowboys for Micah Parsons. But do you think that there's actually going to be a trade done, or is he going to end up just signing with the Cowboys and look silly for putting out that notes that said that he's never playing for the Dallas Cowboys?
I know that Pretty Ricky is your Adam Schefter, so I don't want to meet him. But, I mean, I'm not going to say there's a 0% chance of Micah Parsons getting traded. I think there is somewhat of a possibility, albeit low, in my opinion. I think if I'm putting my money down, Micah Parsons ends up putting pen to paper on a historic NFL contract that makes him the highest paid pass rusher. The question is, when is that going to happen? And I think the most interesting quote of the week came from Jerry Jones, saying that the Cowboys are a soap opera 365 days a year, and when it gets slow, I'll stir it up. Well, consider the pot stirred up, Mr. Jerry Jones. I think it's time to finally get your star pass rusher under contract.
All right, that will do it for us. That's Jordan DeJaney of CBS Sports as we went around the NFL with him, covering all kinds of different topics. Jordan, we appreciate you joining us today.
Thanks so much, guys. Appreciate y'all.
Have a good weekend. All right, when we come back, we're going to talk about an interesting stat that popped up that I never thought about until I read it this morning, and it just makes me so much more nervous for the 2025 season. This is Cover 2 with Blaine Bishop and Zach Lyons here on 104.5 The Zone.
Blaine Bishop here, and look, we talk all day about training, recovery, staying in shape, but no one wants to talk about what happens when things start to slip in the bedroom. The truth is, ED is more common than you think. And it's nothing to be embarrassed about, man. And at Edge Peptide Therapy, they're helping men get real, long-term solutions that don't just treat symptoms, they fix the problem. Their therapies are built around your body using science-backed peptides and hormone optimizing to restore blood flow, increase sensitivity, and boost performance. And even if things are working, they can help take your sex life to the what? Next level. Yes, check it out on edgepeptide.com. Yes, that's edgepeptide.com, or you can check them out online at 615-724-1878, 724-1878. And always tell them, Blaine sent you.
Cover 2 with Blaine Bishop and Zach Lyons here on 105 The Zone, powered by All Four Seasons Garage Doors. 615-737-1045 is the number. We'll have our preview in the top of the hour for the preseason game. We're going to be talking about Cam Ward's comments, top 10 offense Is that as crazy as what everybody thinks it is?
Spicy.
Spicy. Players that we are looking forward to watching that really need to pick it up because there is some bad play in that first preseason game. No matter what maybe other people tell you, the eyes don't lie.
That's right. The eye in the sky.
The eye in the sky don't lie. And we'll do our final predictions for the game and everything. But I have to get to something that I saw earlier today because I was like, oh, I didn't know people actually kept up with this.
I didn't either.
And Bill Barnwell this morning put out, how often did defenses face the opposing team's preferred quarterback last year? The league average was 76.4%. The Titans faced the most backups in the NFL. They faced 40% of the teams they faced had their backups in.
So I have a question for you. How do you feel about him including Sam Darnold?
That's a great question because I think preferred can be seen multiple different ways. Even if J.J. McCarthy wasn't the starter in the beginning, by the time the season rolls around, my prediction was that you're going to be facing J.J. McCarthy.
I would have thought so as well.
Now, maybe that changes, but on the outset, when you're thinking preferred quarterbacks, who's more preferred for your team? The first-round quarterback or the journeyman quarterback?
The first-round quarterback.
The first-round quarterback.
Yeah.
Now, does that mean that the first-round quarterback is always better? No, not necessarily, but that's your preferred starter.
Mm-hmm.
I think that J.J. McCarthy, based on what we've already seen this year, I think he probably would have won that job, even though Sam Darnold was clearly a pretty good quarterback for the Vikings. I just think with Kevin O'Connell, there's a little bit of quarterback magic when it comes to Kevin O'Connell, and I think that they probably would have gone J.J. McCarthy anyway.
Fair enough.
The other one that's kind of question out of this is Joe Flacco, but Anthony Richardson obviously was the preferred quarterback that entire season. He started, I think, 10 or 11 games.
Yeah.
So there's no doubt that he was the preferred starter over Joe Flacco.
I would agree wholeheartedly.
And in this instance, and the reason we bring this up, and it's going to lead into players that we need to see rebound because we need to see this defense rebound, is that they actually did their job. The defense did. 19.7 points per game, holding these 7 teams. That's doing your job.
Doing your job, sure.
19.7 points per game, which includes a team like the Minnesota Vikings in that. And they did a modest total yards of 301.3 yards per game. That is pretty good for a defense. That is about probably NFL average or better.
I would say so.
The problem is that the offense or special teams, you could probably blame them for most, if not all, of these failures and these losses. 1 in 6 against 7 quarterbacks, backup quarterbacks. But the issue is that's some injury luck that went your way. What happens when the injury luck doesn't go your way? And what if that number is more in the league average of 76.4? This defense is, I still contend this defense is worse. There are people who think I'm crazy for saying that. I think this defense is worse today than it was last year.
Yeah, I tend to agree with you. I think it is probably going to be the weak link of the 2025 Titans. Doing your job against backup quarterbacks is all well and good. You know, they did what they were supposed to do. That's fine. You can't count on facing backup quarterbacks week in and week out. Much like we say hope is not a strategy, luck is not a strategy either. So you think they're probably, the odds are probably not in their favor that they're going to be facing 7 non-preferred quarterbacks in 2025. And that's when you really want to see the defense step up. And in those games, it wasn't necessarily the case last season.
Yeah, I mean, because the Malik Willis game sticks out in my mind the most.
Yeah,
we have talked about in football. Now, the F words I've talked about with Blaine. That game really, and a lot of people in my replies were like, not enough people talk about this game. And I'm like, listen to our radio show and our podcast.
Yeah,
I mean, why are you following me, not listening to my stuff? But like, at the end of the day, that was an issue. That was a key issue for this Tennessee Titans defense. And this Tennessee Titans defense is not as good as what the stats tell you.
Yeah.
And when I talk about stats, I talk about your generalized box score stats. Like, allowed the second least amount of yards in the NFL. Well, yeah, there's context to that. They got some crappy field positioning, right? Like, yards really isn't the measure for me in any case to say that someone is a top 10 defense or offense.
Yeah, it's a context thing for me. You know, it's something that you can use the yards, you can use other stats, analytics as breadcrumbs to take you back to the tape to look for certain things, but you've still got to watch the tape. You've still got to look at the eye test for this team. And I think it's a case where if this defense is able to get after the quarterback and if they're able to rush the passer, it can function as intended, and it could be a pretty good unit. The problem is you can't get after quarterbacks. And then in 2024, you couldn't stop the run either. So it was sort of watching the games. You can look at all the yardage stats that you want to. Watching the games, this just did not look like a top upper echelon level defense.
And look, time of possession, being on the field, a long season because your bye week was really early.
Yeah.
All that stuff can play into it. But when you're trying to stack defensive talent against other defensive talent in the NFL, or even stacking that defensive talent against the offensive talent you faced,
yeah,
I think it kind of showed up in games where Mac Jones is kind of like wheeling and dealing and being pretty efficient. Even if he's not scoring, he's still being pretty efficient with the ball. You're not getting yourself off the field.
Yeah.
And when that happens, other things are going to fall through. I think some of it was a little bit of scheme decisions or plan of attack, if you will, defensive plan of attack. But to me, the defense has got to be able to get itself off the field, and it never really was able to do that on a consistent basis. It did it sometimes, but not all the time. And I still don't think this is a top 20 defensive unit in terms of talent right now.
And I don't want to ring any alarms for our listeners or anything like that, but I think we saw flashes of the cracks in the armor in the preseason game against the Buccaneers. Now, I know you're playing your base looks. You're not throwing anything really exotic at the opposing offense in the preseason, and they were down to Tavondre Sweat and Jeffrey Simmons. Those two are going to make a massive impact on this defensive front. But the concerning thing about it is not that we just saw it from the first team against the Buccaneers, second, third stringers, whatever. It's the fact that it didn't really matter what unit was out there. We saw similar issues, and it was opposing quarterbacks being able to stand in the pocket because there's no pass rush and finding space over the middle. We saw Kyle Trask convert several big third downs by just waiting it out, finding the open guy in the middle of the field because he had all day to throw that ball. And that is where, I think some of the concern for the big picture issues plaguing this defense come into play. That I watched that Bucs game and I think, that looks a lot like some of the
run defense
game plans.
Somehow looked a little worse. Now listen, Jalen Kimber on the outside.
Yeah, it was.
I don't know how he has survived the mass culling this week that has happened from certain position groups. And you do hope that if L'Jarius Sneed is there, maybe that helps. If Quandre Diggs is able to get some reps, if Jeffrey Swimmons and Tavondre Sweat, when they're out there, this is different. Again, that's a lot of hope. That's not a lot of reality because last year, none of those things really mattered. Even when L'Jarius Sneed was healthy, it didn't really matter for your run defense or for the way that you attacked Green Bay. Is it for Jeffrey Simmons, Tavondre Sweat were available the whole year, and nobody runs on the Tennessee Titans. You might as well have hung that up next to a banner with the Colts pretzel that's out there right now because, neither of those, they both look the same. Both look like crap.
Yeah. I am with you, man. And while they made a concerted effort to kind of beef up the middle, and I do think against Tampa Bay, as far as interior runs went, I do think the defensive line beefed up a little bit. And I think they held their own in that department. But it was, again, like the same stuff where they would just give up a back-breaking run, and there were guys dropped in coverage. So by the time the back got to the second level, he had space to churn a few extra yards. And I don't know, man. That was one of the things you're bringing up, the number against backup quarterbacks. To me, that's just another breadcrumb that points to 2024 was probably not as good as the yardage stats make it look. And heading into 2025, I don't know that they really added the personnel to make it better.
And listen, I don't know if Carlos Washington Jr. has an anytime touchdown bet, but he is the third string running back for the Atlanta Falcons. If there is one for tonight, place that bet.
I don't
Free
know,
money
man.
at this point.
He's going to be going up against Cam Horsley and Isaiah Rakes, man.
Well, he'll just shoot to the outside where
Get to the
Femi's
outside.
at.
Yeah.
Easton Stick about to carve everybody up, in your opinion.
Yeah.
But we'll talk about that when we come back. Because when we talk, we want to hear from you. 615-737-1045. We're going to give you our players that we are specifically watching for to have a jump in production this week. We're going to get you up to date with who's playing, who's not playing for the Tennessee Titans. It's Cover 2 with Blaine Bishop and Zach Lyons here on 104.5 The Zone.
Let's talk insurance. My new client, King and Associates Insurance in Brentwood. They're independent agents, and that's a big difference. But it goes beyond just having multiple companies to shop, weeding out the non-competitive companies, keeping great relationships with the biggest and the best, along with bundling. But unfortunately, life happens, and they get it. So here's a true story about my friend and coworker that switched from a previous independent agent, got better coverage on his home and its contents, even his automobiles, and he had flawless communication, a true champion in his corner, especially after his 16-year-old daughter had an accident, and they still saved them thousands. And thousands from an independent agent who was overcharging him for years. And you can make the switch and save and do the same, if not more. But don't make the switch because he did, I did. Switch because you should. As a business, family, or an individual, make the switch to King and Associates Insurance. And I'm sure you'd have good use for that extra money that you would be saving. So all you have to do is just give them a call at 615-329-8121. That's 329-8121 or online at tkinginsurance.com.
Cover 2 with Blaine Bishop and Zach Lyons here on 105 The Zone, powered by All Four Seasons Garage Door. 615-737-1045 is the number. Outside of Cam Ward, we all know you want to see Cam Ward.
Yeah.
Who are you most excited to see tonight? For those that may not know, there's quite a lengthy list of players sitting out tonight. We'll start with Tavondre Sweat, who has his tonsils, Kevin Winston Jr., Sebastian Joseph Day, Jalen Harrell, Tajay Spears, obviously Matt Landers, Lloyd Cushenberry, obviously, and obviously L'Jarius Sneed. Those guys are kind of the injured ones, according to PK on Twitter. And then on as far as healthy goes, Big Jeff, he's not going to play.
Mm-hmm.
Calvin Ridley, not going to play.
Mm-hmm.
Tony Pollard, Tyler Lockett, Kevin Zeitler, Quandre Diggs, not going to play.
Yeah, it's the old heads. Give them some rest.
Yeah, pretty much. That is the old head list right there. So we're going to see quite a good bit amount of some of these younger players today.
I'm stoked.
Xavier Restrepo, who is the best wide receiver Cam Ward has played with outside of Kyle Williams in college, who is struggling to make this team.
Yeah.
Obviously, we're going to see maybe 15 snaps from him instead of 11 snaps. So good for Xavier Restrepo. Hopefully he's out there already dapping the players up as they come off the bus.
He might come in at the beginning of the fourth quarter instead of the end of it.
There you go. Okay, so obviously no Calvin Ridley, no Tyler Lockett. This leads us to assume Alec Iamaner, Chimere DK are going to be the wide receivers. Could be Bryce Oliver. Would it be wild if it was Bryce Oliver and Chimere DK, not Alec Iamaner? Let me say something. I know that there is a contingent of Titans analysts who love Alec Iamaner. And I think that they think he does no wrong.
Okay.
He has not looked good since the pads have came on, outside of maybe the one practice I missed.
Where he just dominated.
He dominated, apparently. Yeah. And also, he did not look good in the game.
Okay.
So he's obviously a guy that we need to see more from tonight because he should be getting the opportunity. They are force feeding him like crazy throughout these practices. Do something with it.
Yeah, I haven't been out to practice to see him, but I will say the game action, ran around a lot, played really hard, not taking that away from him. But I do see your point where you kind of want to see the things that people are saying and writing about him. You want to see those things in a game environment. And tonight he should get plenty of opportunity to do that. Now, if I go back to my draft evaluation of him, I was a big fan of him coming out of Stanford. And I think there is sort of an untapped versatility to his game. I think he has the athleticism to play multiple spots. Tonight is where I want to see, and this kind of goes for Chimere DK too, I want to see these young guys, these young bucks, get a chance to run with the first team offense to see where they're at and what they can do to help this unit on down the line.
Yeah, Chimere DK, I know he only got, I think, 2 targets in the preseason game, but he turned one of those into a 6 or 8 yard gain. He has looked, he's had the most consistent since the pads come on training camp, in my opinion, out of the 2 wide receivers. And out of all the undrafted or drafted rookie wide receivers, he has looked the most consistent. So I would like to see that explosion show up on tape, some of that speed. And, you know, they should have the opportunity. You're talking about the guys that they should be seeing on offense with Cam Ward behind center and the majority of this offensive line. We're talking about Clark Phillips III, Lamar Jackson, not the quarterback, the defensive back, and Billy Bowman Jr. in the nickel.
I mean, listen, Billy Bowman Jr. He's a Spitfire now.
He's a Spitfire, but at the end of the day, these guys with Cam Ward in this offensive line should be able to find the creases in this defense to make plays. Alec Iamaner should be able to out-jump a Lamar Jackson or out-physical a Clark Phillips. I mean, I think if I remember correctly, isn't Clark Phillips like really tiny?
Yeah, he's like the Kyler Murray of quarterbacks.
Yeah.
So, I liked his tape. He's a good player, but really undersized guy.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I think we call Roger McCreary a little undersized.
Yeah.
This is actually probably worse than Roger McCreary, but he's somehow playing on the outside according to this depth chart on
I
our
love that
lads.
for Clark Phillips.
I love
man.
that for Clark Phillips.
Good for him.
But for me, I look at it and I go, okay, we got to see more of these two guys.
Yeah.
And because we didn't see a lot last week, and Ellick was tried to get into a rhythm. He was targeted, didn't do anything with them. Speaking of opportunities and not doing much with it, I know that there are people out there who thought Femi Oladejo had a good game, and he's only doing what he's asked of him.
Yeah.
But Blaine has played in this system, and he sat across from me, and we both agree it wasn't good.
Yeah.
You can be doing what you're asked to do. You could be asked to set the edge, and that's your role, and that's what you got to do. Doesn't mean you did it correctly.
Yeah.
Doesn't mean you did it at a good enough level for the NFL play. Femi had a bad game. I don't think there's any other way to say it. You may want to say like slightly below average.
No.
You could say it. I think he had a bad game.
I would say discouraging.
Yeah, I think if you really watched the film yourself and you didn't have anybody's influence on you or anybody telling you what they think he's being asked to do or what they think the scheme was, I think you would say, well, man, he had maybe one or two impactful plays out of all the snaps that he played, and he's a second-round pick.
Yeah, I mean, we were talking about this with Mojo Rojo in our highly sophisticated production meeting before the show today, and the way I was explaining it to him is that watching the tape, it felt like Oladejo was kind of going through drills, like taking it step by step. Okay, this is what I'm supposed to do with my feet here. Then I'm supposed to get my hands up, and then I'm supposed to do this. When you're playing like that, like in practice, it's fine to learn the technique. Like that's how you get better, right? But in real-time game situations, you have to have a sort of flow. You have to have the instincts to really get into your moves. And I think that was something that Femi lacked. And I just go back to him being a second-round pick and the lofty expectations that come with that. It is not Femi Oladejo's fault that he's in this role. The guy, I had him as a fourth-round guy. I mean, he was like edge 17 on my rankings, and I liked him quite a bit as a developmental guy that you could really see some returns on within 2 to 3 years if you teach him how to rush the passer.
If the Titans didn't draft him, how far would he have fallen?
I don't know. It's one of those situations where you think like, the rumor that, what was it? Des Fitzpatrick's dad tricked people into thinking he was going to be like a fourth round pick. So the Titans panicked and got him. Dude, we don't know if the Titans had some sort of information that like somebody was after Femi Oladejo. I think in a general consensus, unless this is one of those situations where the draft community is just way off on a player, then I think he probably would have been there at the top of day 3.
Okay. We got our first buzz in from producer Mojo Rojo.
Mojo Rojo in the building on the boards.
What you got?
I just had a tough time watching Femi the other night. It was not the most enjoyable thing. I mean, the thing with Femi, just the way I look at it, and I know everyone has different opinions, is like he's not a cover guy. He's an edge guy, and he's a project at edge. So what would you expect to get out of him if he's going to have to play a lot early? Run stopping. And I was telling Stoney and you, Zach, like when we were talking before the show, like give him some benefit of the doubt. There's no Jeff and Sweat in there. But Tampa was bouncing a lot of runs outside on his side, too. So I didn't see him setting that edge at all, really.
He tried. He just wasn't good at it. Like, he doesn't, it seems to me, the way that he processes what he sees on the field is so slow that his body, his speed, his power, he can't take advantage of it. We can't take advantage of the things that make him a project because he hasn't caught up to the speed of the game.
There were a couple of plays that I noticed where he kind of flipped his shoulders. I don't know what this is a bad time for a geometry lesson here live on the air, but I don't know what's the opposite of parallel, like cross, like plus signed to the line of scrimmage. Perpendicular. That's what I'm looking for. Mojo Rojo helping me out there. Throw me a lifeline.
Cross.
He gets perpendicular to the line of scrimmage, which, like if you're one-on-one with a tackle, like you want to get upfield, but if you just like stop your feet and stand there, that tackle's just going to drop his pads and drive you out of the play and open up that hole. And to me, that was where I got into like, okay, this is probably a case where he's thinking, I got to beat this guy out and set the edge. And there's just not any drive after that. And I think that's where the instinct comes in, where it's like, okay, I've got this guy beat. I need to get upfield into the ball carrier, or I need to drive this guy back and collapse this hole instead of just standing here at the edge, basically dancing with the guy. And I think there was a flash in the game where I saw him, like, he threw a rip move at the right tackle and he just about had him rotated, but it wasn't quick enough. That's where he's at right now. We should be watching these preseason games thinking, oh man, there's a moment right there where you see it. And it's like, okay, stack some of those moments and you might push Jalen Harrell out of a job. Yeah. We should not be looking at him right now the way we are as a second round pick that should get significant playing time this season.
Yeah, I would have to say that Jalen Harrell is not very good.
Well, yeah, that's a separate conversation.
He flashed more and looked better in the preseason game.
But I mean, you get my point about expectations. It's like that's where I think Femi is probably more well suited to compete, not like up with the starting unit.
Speaking of competing, we got two. I got one rookie and one second year player that are kind of pushing for more playing time in the rotation, I guess you could say. Mm-hmm. Cedric Gray, who I thought has put together a very good camp. The more reps he gets, the more comfortable he looks. Believe Will Lamas on Twitter, who writes for Titans Sized or Titans Wire, one of the two.
One of the two.
Sized.
Yeah, we're trying, man.
He put out a couple of plays where he basically, Cedric Gray himself, made plays that forced a 3 and out.
Yes.
And like, if you did not notice Cedric Gray, outside of James Williams, Cedric Gray was the most impactful defender, I think, on that field, which is a good sign. I understand that's a disappointing start to his career.
Yeah.
But that's a guy that I'm going to be looking to continue to build on. He's been stacking days. He got run with the ones this week.
Ooh.
So he's been stacking days. If he can stack games, it has nothing to do with James Williams, because I think James Williams is exceptional. The more inside linebackers you have that are trying to compete for a spot, no matter how they land, a 4th-round draft pick, even if he's not a starter but a rotational piece, that's still good for your team and still good for what you drafted, because he is a 4th-round pick at the end of the day. And then Marcus Harris is also starting to push Darrell Baker Jr. for some time outside, which is something that I'm going to be watching this week as well.
So a question for you. When you say Cedric Gray is getting some run with the ones, are you allowed to say, is Cody Barton coming off the field or is James Williams coming off the field?
I was not at practice. This is just something I have heard.
Okay.
And I did not ask the person who told me.
Because I would be very curious.
Are we under the assumption Cody Barton's playing a drive tonight, at least? Or
it hasn't been said, so I would assume that maybe we'll know, right? Because at practices that I have been, Cedric Gray has been coming in for Cody Barton.
Yeah.
And Otis Reese was coming in for James Williams, and that's a whole other discussion that we likely won't have.
Something went sideways there.
Yeah, so something really weird happened there. But if you notice that when Cody Barton came out, Cedric Gray went in. So it would be interesting to see, because they have been touting this as a true linebacker competition. If Cedric Gray gets the start tonight, that is them testing the waters of what's the best linebacker duo.
Yeah, I'm with you, but I think it would be a massive development for this team if both of these guys turned into serviceable players.
But Marcus Harris, 6th-round pick, and then also Khalil Mullins, another rookie. He is probably going to see the lion's share of some snaps tonight because Julius Chestnut is likely going to split time, but no Tony Pollard, no Tyjae Spears tonight, so we'll see how that rolls too.
Pains me to say it, but my boy John Ojukwu, man, false start last week. He was getting some rotation in the 4th quarter. I think Jalen Duncan and Brandon Crenshaw-Dixon are both coming along pretty nicely in their roles. I think we're going to have to get some serious run if we're going to get Ojukwu Mania back on track.
There you go. When we come back, Cam Ward literally said that he believes that this Tennessee Titans offense could be top 10. He believes that his wide receiver group is top 5. A lot of people have problems with that. I really don't give a crap. But how close is he to being correct? That's what we're actually going to talk about. This is Cover 2 with Blaine Bishop and Zach Lyons here on 104.5 The Zone. Cover 2 with Blaine Bishop and Zach Lyons here on 104.5 The Zone, powered by All Four Seasons Garage Door. 615-737-1045 is the number. And Cam Ward kind of got a little bit of hot water for saying stuff that he's already said.
Yeah, I know.
I mean, this isn't the first time we've heard this top 5 wide receiver thing, top 10 offense thing. But being that I haven't been here to talk about it, we didn't do football under the F words. I pondered a little question. I've sat here listening to the radio. I've seen the tweets and all this kind of stuff. And I was a little curious. I mean, how crazy is Cam Ward? First, let's hear from Cam Ward on the Titans being a top 10 offense in the NFL.
Just the playmakers that I have in the backfield with me, the running back core, then especially in the receiving core. I think I honestly have a top 5 receiver core in the NFL, including the young guys who are able to make plays. It's really all about just us or myself putting the ball in their frame of work, letting them make a play. And then it's also those guys being aggressive to make plays for the team. And then the O-line, I don't have to worry about them. That's going to always be the standpoint. Those guys, they bring the energy every day, especially starting with JC. So I'm excited to be behind those guys. Those guys' pass protection, they keep me clean. Really, I would say 8 times out of 10. I know I'm going to take a bad sack this year. They're going to give up a sack this year, but we just got to continue to play, good, clean football.
And it sounds laughable on the surface. I mean, we haven't seen a top 10 offense in this Tennessee Titans team since 2020.
Yeah.
This seems very laughable. Top 5 pass catchers with old-ass Tyler Lockett, with Calvin Ridley.
2 fourth-round picks.
2 fourth-round picks. Van Jefferson.
Yeah.
Bryce Oliver.
Undrafted.
It sounds laughable. I mean, I get it.
The team was 3-14, disaster piece offense last season.
The offensive line, this and that. But I do have to say that when you start crunching the numbers and you start seeing the thin margins between what is a successful top 10 offense in the NFL and what the Tennessee Titans were, it's not as crazy as you think.
No.
Because here's why. If the Tennessee Titans' success rate would just be in the top 10, that would probably solve a lot.
Yeah.
And now success rate is, as defined by all the nerds out there, as did you gain the yards on the down and distance that you're supposed to gain? The Tennessee Titans ranked 29th in success rate with 40.4% rate.
Whew.
Now you're like, oh, they're 29th. How in the world can they get to top 10? They only have to increase that by 6.9% to crack the top 10. The margin for errors are so thin. You got to remember, they were 40.4%. The Lions, who had the highest success rate in the league, were 49.6. The Cardinals, who were 10th, were 47.3.
Yeah.
So if you increase your success rate on both rushing and passing, it's not just passing, then your offense will likely score maybe 6.8 points more per game, which is all it took to get into the top 10 of that category.
Yeah.
It may get 54.9 more yards per game, which gets them in the top 10 of that category. It's not as insane as it sounds, especially when ESPN just put out an article that says, hey, your offensive line, top 5 position group at that position in the NFL.
Yeah.
Whoa.
Man, I give Ron Slay a ton of credit for this yesterday because he was digging into it from a yardage perspective on 3HL yesterday, talking about how the offense had 5,100 yards and it only would have taken 6,000 yards to get inside the top 10. You do the math by 17 games, that's
54.9 yards per game.
54 yards per game more that they would need, and that's just another metric.
And that's just to get in top 10. If this just gets into the top 15, that's a pretty good offense.
It is. It is, yeah. So I look at it from an explosives standpoint because I've written about the explosives over on stackingtheinbox.com. There's a wealth of information over there about how the Titans performed on explosive plays last season. What they need for 2025 is to get that number up. Right now, my figure was 2.9 explosives per play is what they had. So if you get that number up by 2, based on the numbers, my figure was 31.46 yards per explosive in 2024. 2 more of those plays gets you the yardage you need from a yards per game standpoint to get inside the top 10.
Even if you just get one more, Stoney, to your point, 31.4. So then you would only need, if my math is correct, 20 extra yards from the other plays.
Yes. So
sustaining drives get you there.
This is some basic logic here we're applying. Like, okay, they had 304.2 yards per game in 2024, which was 26th in the NFL. I've said that the explosives are the quickest way you can turn this offensive around. We've heard Brian Callahan talk about generating more explosives this offseason. There's a reason for that. 2 more explosives per game in 2025, and they get to 364 yards per game. Guess where that would have put them, Zach, in 2024?
Where?
10th. 10th in the NFL in yards per game. Yards per game is just a metric, one metric that we're discussing in the larger conversation of what makes a top 10 offense.
But more yards lead to more points. This is all more success. The 6.9% success rate to get an increase to get you in the top 10 leads to more yards and more points. Leads you to better EPA per play, which is Cam is going to do that probably single-handedly.
Yeah.
But again, this isn't as crazy as what people think. The Cardinals were snuck into the top 10 in a couple of these categories. The Cardinals.
So I use this metric to just highlight that a couple of plays per game can swing a ranking dramatically. We're talking about going from 26th in the NFL to 10th that quickly with just a couple of plays. I don't think it takes as much as you'd think to make that swing, and that's why we see worst to first stuff happen every year, every season for somebody. I'm not saying it's going to happen for the Titans, but you think something that we've been preaching on Football and Other F Words, better protection and better processing from the quarterback should unlock this offense, and I don't think that's as crazy as it sounds.
Well, you saw it with Cam Ward. I mean, I know this isn't technically an explosive, but he had a few explosive pass plays, right? Already in the preseason.
Yeah.
And his average depth of target was 10 yards down the field. And you saw him get backed up to a 1st and 20 and turn that into a 2nd and 10 with one play.
So I mentioned that they had about 3 explosives per game in 2024. And I said at the beginning of this discussion, if you could get that number up to 5, 2 more a game, you're a top 10 offense. That's just one path to becoming a top 10 offense. Let's look at Cam Ward's second drive. Now we're going to get on the fringe here with this, but he had a 27-yarder to Calvin Ridley on that second drive. An explosive play on one of his 2 drives. So you think about the fact that most offenses get about 10 drives per game. That's a 50% hit rate. You get 5 explosives per game on 10 drives. Boom, there's your 2 explosives per play or per game added. We're doing some really loose math on a small sample size here, but I'm just throwing it out there. It's not as far-fetched as people think for this to be a top 10 offense. And I go back to something I've said all summer long is that the plays are there, the receivers are open, the scheme is working. If the protection holds up and the quarterback makes better decision, we should see an exponential improvement for this offensive unit. And I stand by it. I will die on that hill. That's why I sound so passionate right now.
Well, it also goes back to what Brian Callahan said last year. We want to put the opposing offense in 3rd and long, but we don't want to be in 3rd and longs. So if you got a quarterback that can keep you out of 3rd and longs, if you got a quarterback that convert 3rd downs, your drives extend, your plays extend, your yards extend. You may get in field goal percentage because points per game includes field goals because your offense is driving that down the field. So if you can get a field goal, that could be then a part of this equation too, right?
Swings
all this comes down to efficiency, which is something that Brian Callahan has talked about a lot. And listen, I get it sounds laughable because we were we're discussing a team that was 26th in yards per game, 27th in points per game, 30th in EPA per play, and 29th in success rate. But the margin for error with the success rate is so small that it can easily swing just because of Cam Ward. And Ron Slay was trying to say this yesterday, but he agrees with us. He's telling us to preach. He's saying he's putting something in the collection plate. Encourage everybody. Let's pass it around, put everything in the collection plate. Give us some likes on YouTube. But this isn't as crazy as it sounds. And I understand that Cam Ward is saying this more of like a speaking into existence. I got my teammates' backs. I believe in my team. I believe that we can do this. But for those that think it's kind of laughable, It's really not.
No, it's not. And I would challenge people to go back and watch some of the tape from 2024 and just watch the rhythm and the flow of the offense and see how much of it was just hamstrung because defensive fronts were automatically in the backfield. There was no time to get set and throw the ball. And even when there was, the proper read, the proper reaction to what the defense was doing was not always made by the quarterback. So just by virtue of those two things alone, you think with Cam Ward and the clutch gene, as somebody dropped in the F&M Bank chat, just by virtue of that alone should raise the floor of this offense.
Rojo.
I was going to say, like, what Stoney's saying with the, you probably only need 2 more explosive plays here and there. One, like, the biggest reason for explosive plays is the offensive line, obviously. Like,
yes.
But that's just how it is. And also, I think, Levis obviously had a lot of issues, but one thing Cam has him far beat in is his extendability with plays and being able to get out of the pocket and keep stuff moving. And when you're in the NFL, even as good of guys they have on defense, you can only cover for so long.
Yep.
So I think some of those like natural scramble plays in the season, the more of those they can find a way to fit in can lead to more of those explosive plays.
Well, you talk about penalty yards and turnovers too. Echo 550 in the F&M Bank chat, Twitter, YouTube, Facebook Live also talks about that too. That changes the dynamics because if you're not, 2nd and 20, you have the surrender run play, right? But if you're 2nd and 4, you may be able to tear off an explosive run play or maybe even get 10 yards.
That made me remember the Todd Downing surrender draw.
He was so good at the surrender draws. I mean, because you also talk about, he's a rookie quarterback. The Commanders and the Broncos were ranked really highly with rookie quarterbacks last year in a lot of different stats. They were also ranked highly as a wide receiver unit. And if you really look at their wide receivers, they're not much better than what the Tennessee Titans have.
No.
In all reality. When you're talking about Olamide Zaccheaus being the second best wide receiver for the Commanders, and I guess it would be
how dare you
Marcus
slander
Mims for the Broncos. I like both those players for what they are, but they're niche players.
How dare you slander Luke McCaffrey, by the way.
No, y'all are good. I have one more point because I remember I was going to say this on 3HL too. Like a lot of this with offense too is like time of possession. You got to own time of possession if you want to have these yards. And I know like the Bengals were in that top 10. They have a horrible defense. They also have Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase and T. Higgins. So that kind of evens itself out with the yardage. But the Titans defense is going to have to get off the field for them to have any chance of getting, in the top 10 with yardage because of that time of possession battle.
Okay, because we already got people in the chat talking about it. Let's play the clip of why Cam Ward believes that that his wide receivers have the ability to be top 5 wide receivers.
I just think because we all believe it. The whole receiving core. I love speaking out to existence. I tell those guys that they're the best, and it really just comes down to us being on our P's and Q's every week. And that's where yesterday's practice we weren't, and today's practice we were a lot better. And I just think the biggest thing about myself in the receiving core is that we got to always have confidence with each other. I know they're gonna get hemmed up on a route. They know I'm going to throw an interception. But at the end of the day, no matter what bad play goes on, we got to always have that confidence in each other that we're going to make the next play.
Belief and confidence.
Yeah.
That can go a long way in the NFL. Belief and confidence in each other. And again, I will reiterate, would I bet money that they're going to be a top 5 unit, or would I bet money they're going to be a top 10 unit? No. But there is a clear path. Did you know that the Tennessee Titans wide receivers, not tight ends, not running backs, we're talking strictly wide receivers, last year had the 6th highest yards per reception in the NFL?
I would not have known that. No.
6th highest yards per reception. Ravens, Packers, Steelers, Vikings, then Colts and Titans were the top 7.
Yeah.
So they were tied for 6. Or is that tied for 7? No, that's tied for 6.
Yeah.
I just did my math incorrectly. Chargers, Saints, Jaguars, Bengals, back it up. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean the yards per reception is the best measure, but we're talking they were 23rd in targeting wide receivers. 285. They were 67 wide receiver targets away from cracking the top 10. If you do that, you crack the top 10 in a couple different areas.
Yeah.
Cam Ward likes to target his wide receivers a lot.
Yeah.
So if we're going to get the targets, even with the reception percentage, which was 31st in the NFL, reception percentage by their wide receivers, they weren't very good when they were targeted. Some of those were off-target throws.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, you got to catch them when they're in your wheelhouse. they were still only 8.3% behind the top 10.
Yeah.
8.3 from 31st. All it takes is maybe, 20 more catches that were incompletions and you're in the top 10, which then boosts your yards, which then boosts your touchdowns. Because really, they had 15 touchdowns by their wide receiver unit. The 10th place team, the Cowboys and the Chargers and the Packers were all tied for 10th with 19. So that's not that many.
It's not at all.
Again, we have to understand that if they're a top 10 offense or top 11 offense, they may be a top 5 wide receiver core. It may be the tight ends or the running backs that hold them back or something like that. Mm-hmm. And again, I don't believe this is going to happen, but it's really not as far off as what people think. They had a 5.3 touchdown percentage from their wide receivers. A 5.3 touchdown rate. 5.8 was the Broncos at number 10.
So, I mean, that's what I think the crux of the argument here is, that it's not as, from a statistical, analytical standpoint, it is not as far-fetched as it sounds. I think the disconnect is that people hear the terminology and they're automatically thinking like, well, what were the top 10 offenses? Like, the Eagles, the Chiefs, the Bengals, the Lions, and putting the Titans in that category just seems ludicrous to people, but they don't have to be in that category to be in the top 10. And the margins can swing on the balance of just a few yards in each game.
The biggest categories that I looked at that had the most to do with seeing the same names in almost the same order, so a lot of correlation for a top 10 offense, were touchdowns, touchdown rate, and EPA per target, expected points added per target when you're targeting wide receivers. The Titans were 5 touchdowns away from touchdown, from being top 10, 0.6 percentage points from being touchdown rate, from being top 10, and 0.16 points in EPA per target, which is a lot, but if you get more touchdowns, that number goes up from being top 10 in that. Again, but while being the 23rd in target rate for wide receivers, and with that number likely going up because of Cam Ward and what this offense really wants to be, because you see the Bengals, they were 6 in targets for their wide receivers. They obviously have better wide receivers to target, but the Broncos were 9th. The Colts were 10th. The Jets were 8th. These aren't like insane wide receiver rooms to boost up your targets with. Then turn around. If you tied in a success rate, we'll see everything happen. And again, I'm not saying that they're going to be top 10 or top 5 wide receiver unit, but it's more than just about name value. It's about production on the field. If you look at the Broncos and the Falcons and the Cardinals and all those teams and wide receiver rooms, even the Jets being in there in some of these lists, that should tell you a little bit more that, hey, it's about the collective and not just about the names on the back sometimes.
Do we need to balance this discussion out? Because we're getting very spirited and very hyped on this becoming a top 10 offense potentially. Do we need to talk about the prospects of the defense being a top 10 defense?
No, that's just not going to happen.
Don't do that to us.
Yeah, this is just it's a terrible defense. They'll be lucky to even be top 20 at this point. All right, when we come back, we'll go to Ernie in Nashville, who wants to talk about Cam Ward and explosive plays. We'll also wrap up our talk about the preseason game tonight. This is Cover 2 with Blaine Bishop and Zach Lyons here on 104.5 The Zone. Cover 2 with Blaine Bishop and Zach Lyons here on 105 The Zone, powered by All Four Seasons Garage Door. 615-737-1045 is the number. Before we get to Ernie, we were just doing some conversating.
As we tend to do.
As we do. We were talking, doing some math, busted out the calculators.
We love math.
Last year, because we were talking about how do they get the yardage. Last year, like we said, they needed 934 yards or 54.9 yards per game to crack the top 10 as an offensive unit in yards.
Here we go.
Right?
Here we go. Bust out that calculator for him, Zach.
Okay. They needed 519 yards to be a top wide receiver unit last year, top 10 wide receiver unit.
Yeah.
Everybody's expecting Calvin Ridley to get 1,200 yards. Every analyst, every fantasy expert is expect 1,200 yards. There's 200 yards out of your 519 that you need for the wide receiver unit.
200 more in 25 than you had in 24.
Yes. So that's now we need 319 for the wide receiver unit.
Mm-hmm.
Now you add in Tyler Lockett. Last year, Tyler Boyd got 390 yards. He was pretty much a non-factor.
Yes.
Tyler Lockett, who's pretty much a non-factor for his team, got 600 yards.
So
there's 210 yards. So there's 410 yards you need for out of 519.
So now we need just what?
Eligai Manor, Chimere DK, one of those guys to maybe get 100 and something more yards.
Yeah.
That's not that hard to do.
It's not.
And that also eats into the 900-something yards that you get. We were talking about 400 and something yards to get to the 934 extra.
Yeah.
So maybe you don't get top 10. But even those two changes for this offense should at least get you top 15.
You phrased it beautifully right before we went back on the air. If you start doing the math on what it takes, the pathway to being a top 10 offense, things add up pretty quickly.
Oh, Ernie left.
Ernie, come back.
Oh, just about to go to Ernie, too.
We started talking numbers, and Ernie said, I got to get out of here.
It's a sign.
Yeah. I was going to go to Ernie, just needed to get that out. I needed to get it off my chest.
Well, sometimes we got to say things so we don't forget them because we'll be on something else before we know it.
Right. I'm just saying, again, Slay was talking about yesterday. It does not take a lot of changes for this offense to look drastically different. If we're talking about Will Levis and Mason Rudolph being terrorists for this offense, then and everybody believes Cam Ward's the franchise guy, there's another force multiplier. Tyler Lockett being better than Tyler Boyd. Force multiplier. Talking about Calvin Ridley and Cam Ward's connection, we saw it on display already that he's going to feed the ball to Calvin Ridley.
Yeah, and you think about last season, it was later on in the season before they got to that point with Calvin Ridley because they were still trying to figure out, okay, who's going to get the ball between him and DeAndre Hopkins.
Yeah.
And
so,
Hopkins,
Calvin Ridley didn't really take off to what was the Lions game that he really started taking off and being force fed. So there's another change to this offense. Just saying, it's just all math. Everybody thinks that it's more than that, but it's really just all math.
And you haven't even gotten into guys. You mentioned Tyler Boyd, but they relied on Josh Wiley a lot in the passing game. He had a few explosives last year. Nick Westbrook-Akine as well, like guys that couldn't really separate. And now you hope
and Gunnar Helm and Chimere DK can find the holes in this these defenses. I've seen it. I've seen it with my eyes.
So we're going on down the depth chart at this point, saying they're better here, they're better there, they're better here, they're better there. I'm willing to say it. I think it's going to happen, but I don't know if you're willing to take that leap with me just yet.
I'm not, but I do think that there is a pretty easy path because, like I said, the Cardinals make it into some of these. And nobody was talking about the Cardinals' offense being a top 10 because they weren't winning games. Everybody thinks that we've got to remember the ultimate team sport.
Mm-hmm.
And this year, if you want to win games, the offense is going to have to be the truck pulling the trailer.
I agree.
Because this defense is not going to be the truck pulling the trailer. This offense is going to have to be that. And it may not equate to wins.
Yeah.
They're like the Bills are barely in some of these passing statistics. But Josh Allen won MVP.
Boom.
But it's because it's more about the efficiency sometimes. And listen, I do think that Lamar Jackson probably should have won it, even though it did prove my preseason bet of Josh Allen winning it right. But it just goes to show that just because, again, the Cardinals are in here, we talked about the Colts, like it doesn't necessarily going to reflect into a playoff run. The Falcons, by the way, you should bet on because they are really high in a bunch of these stats, even with Kirk Cousins throwing a bunch of interceptions. You should probably go Michael Penix Jr. on that. Real quick, what do you need to see from Cam Ward tonight that you didn't see or you did see and think he needs to improve on for tonight's game?
Don't start with a 3-and-out, man. Come out, faster start. Let's get a sustained drive to start this game. We've heard that they're going to get 2 drives, the starting offense is, and I want to see that first one go longer than 3 plays.
All right. What about you, Ross? What do you need to see?
I want to see, as a former receiver, I want to see some of these younger guys step up and make plays and like play to their skill set. I want to see Chimere DK get in space, make some plays using his speed and explosiveness, and I want to see Alec Imanner make some big boy plays out there, even in the run game. You know, put some DB in the dirt here or there too. That would be fine. But just guys playing to their skill sets and getting open, making plays.
I need to see Cam Ward maybe be a little bit more settled coming out of the gate. Again, he's only going to get 2 series. I would like to see a sustained drive in the first one, even if it doesn't mean that he's going to score points. I'm kind of tired with this whole entire team that they have to constantly overcome something.
Yeah.
Like, I want to see some success at the beginning and some success at the end, but when the ones come out, I don't care about wins or losses in the preseason. Just look good. But also, quit putting yourself behind the 8 ball. Quit having to have a 3-and-out or a penalty to make yourself look give yourself something to overcome. Quit making unnecessary obstacles to put in your way. That will do it for us. 3HL's up next. Has been covered 2 with Blaine Bishop and Zach Lyons. Stoney, it will be just a few more hours, and then we'll be back on the air for Titans Talk Back right after the game, after the press conferences. Are you excited?
See you then. I can't wait. I'm stoked. After that conversation, I'm ready to run through.
Are you
a
little sad there's no Tim Boyle tonight? We had a blast watching Tim Boyle.
We did have a blast. Yeah, I'm a little sad, but I'm hoping Trevor Siemian can put on something similar for us.
Be better than 0.6, Trevor.
Yes, yeah, 0.6 passer rating, no more. All right, that will do it for us. In the meantime,
and in between time,
peace.
Peace.